Happy New Year, fans, and welcome to the first edition of the Old School Shooters podcast for 2023. In terms of our very special guest tonight, the man known as the Star Maker, Kenny Bolin. How are you, Kenny?
I'm doing very well, and it's Kenny the Star Maker Bolin. If you're going to introduce me right.
Star
Kenny
Maker
the
Bolin.
Star Maker Bolin, as in I make stars. There we go.
Yes.
So
And
now we got that out of the way. Now you said
we're-
the first edition. Is this the first show of the new year? Is that what we're doing, or the first ever show? What are we doing?
This is the first show of 2023 that we have scheduled.
I just had mine last night on a brand new show, brand new format, and it was the first season 1, episode 1. It was the Star Maker Bolin Show. We'll talk about that later on. But all right, just wanted to make sure we get those introductions done right. We can't have any screw ups here today. I have enough of those on my own show.
we have quite a free flowing program here, but I will get into a proper introduction as to why they call you a Star Maker in just a bit. Sure. My co-host, the King of Connecticut, is.
Wait a minute. Do we have breaking news here? Read that comment. Oh my God, is that for real?
Oh my goodness!
Oh geez, what a way to start the show. I hope that. Well, that's a terrible joke if it is a joke.
Yeah.
And I got. I wish I was on my show right now because I got pictures of me and Lex Luger and Kevin Nash from when we were at a show at the Louisville Gardens when my son was little, and we show the picture from time to time. But I am just now, if this is true, I'm just now hearing this, and you would know this guest more than I would, or the viewer. Terrible news, man. I knew Lex a little bit, not as well as Cornette and some others, but when I lived in Atlanta, he used to put my son in the ring. Him and Bobby Eaton would put him in the ring and play with him and try to get him to, what's the language like on this show?
Cuss all you want, man.
They would get my son when he was little to fuck with Jimmy's promos. So Bobby and Luger would put him in the ring and they would yell at Jimmy and get Chris because they knew Jimmy couldn't say anything to Chris. So they would have Chris at age 2 screwing with Jimmy during the promos. And man, I am so sorry to hear that. Man, 61, because I'll be 63 in March. And we got too many people younger than me dropping dead here, man. That's terrible news. Sorry to hear. What was he sick or just heart attack or what happened?
Well,
yes, I have worked in Huntington, West Virginia before. I have.
Excellent.
Had dinner with Paul Bear and the Undertaker after the show, as a matter of fact. Jim Cornette had to go one way. We had to go the other. And Paul Bear, Undertaker, and myself went to a Shoney's along with my son way back when, 20 years ago or longer. Long time.
With respect to Lex, I think the fans are aware of his, history of significant health problems. And I know he was making the convention circuit as recently as December of this year, so that'll be shocking.
Man, what a downer!
Shocking news if that is in fact accurate. If any of the fans,
I'm just now. I'll check my iPhone here and see if I see anything on it. But he got the news from somewhere, I guess. But there's so many trolls these days. You never know. Mm-hmm. I have not seen anything on it on my phone. But it doesn't necessarily mean anything. We got a lot of West Virginia people in here today. What's up with that?
Maybe that's a fan base that is underappreciated for the Star Maker.
It might be. Now, it's been a long time since I've been there, but I did a few shows there. As a matter of fact, the first night the WWE used pyro, at least as far as I can remember, because me and Cornette were standing backstage at the Monday Night Raw, and we were behind the big giant screen. And now whether they'd used that big screen before or not, I can't tell you. But we're minutes away from the start of the show, and me and Jimmy are standing backstage, and a few other of the WWE guys were back there, and they all walked away. And there stands me and Jimmy, and I said, "Well, Jimmy, I'll catch you after the show, and then we'll converse then." And then the next thing you know, the goddamn pyro goes off, and Jimmy about shit his pants because he gets startled very easily. And needless to say, and it got my attention too, but I thought Jimmy was going to have a heart attack. We were not expecting the pyro. So I'm thinking that might be the first night that WWE used pyro was in Huntington, West Virginia. And I could be wrong on that, but that was the first time I knew about it because Jimmy and I would not have been standing behind the Titantron had we known there's going to be pyro at 8:00. So, and we were not smart enough to get out of the way. Jerry May from Indiana. Well, I didn't even know what state Jerry was from. I didn't realize Jerry was a Hoosier. So how you doing? Jerry needs to get down here and have lunch with me sometime. He's a frequent visitor to my show, apparently a Packer fan, and is a big donor on my show. And he even helped us out with a nice donation last night, and even bigger donations a few nights before that. So we got Sean McAllister watches my show quite a bit. So thank you, Sean, for tuning in. We're going to try and break the all-time record-breaking numbers over here tonight. We're going to, whatever they are.
Well,
we might not, but we're trying.
Let's go for it. I was going to mention as part of the introduction that you earned or achieved the nickname Star Maker due to the fact that you were responsible for introducing more people over a protracted period of time to the WWE than anyone. And some of the names that jump out there include some shooters, which we're gonna talk about as the focus.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna get into that in just a second. But you have given me a segue to address one of your ignorant fans here. Throw up Dave Martin's comment there. Throw that up there. You got that? Oh, Coattails Bolin, he says. Well, number one, you're so poor you can't even afford a badge to be a part of this show. And number two, if I'm Coattails Bolin, name me the job that Jimmy Cornette ever got me. Name me the job. Other than as ring announcer in Smoky Mountain Wrestling for a short period of time in backstage production. Name me the job. I got my job with Nick Goulas after 7 years, which is where I ended up managing Tojo at, and we'll get into that in a minute. 7 years I waited for Jimmy for me to be a coattail rider and ride his coattails in the business, and that didn't pan out. Didn't even work out riding Jerry Lawler's coattails because he didn't get me into business either. And I had a discussion with Bill Dundee recently, and Bill said, "Well, man, if I'd known you wanted in, all you had to do is tell me." He's Cornette barely. He never even told us you wanted in. I said, "Yeah, apparently you didn't tell Lawler either." I said, "But that was a whole different story than what he was telling me." So I run into Nick Goulas, and that's how I get my job. So that's how I got that job. And then what's his name? He was an NWA promoter, Philadelphia. Dennis Corluzza. Dennis Corluzza got me to start managing his staff in Louisville, Kentucky at another wrestling company that I don't really like to talk, but they were called IWA. Dennis Corluzza got me worked into that job. No help from Jimmy Cornette whatsoever. And then Danny Davis came over to that show on the Eddie Gilbert Memorial and recruited me to be at OVW. And I was at OVW 3 years before Jimmy Cornette ever showed up. Dave Martin, if that is your real name, who can't afford a badge to be a part of this show. So if I'm riding so goddamn many coattails, please extend one for me so I can ride it and make a little money off from it, because it ain't worked out so fucking far, idiot. All right, so we got Charles Stevenson here. Kenny, when you first seen Mark Henry in OVW, did you think this talented monster with no ring ability? Well, it was my job, if they had no ring ability, to get them back to the WWE or into the WWE for the first time. John Cena came from California. Bull Buchanan had a cup of coffee up in the WWE. And he was the first one who actually got called up to the WWE under my tutelage. I remember Jimmy coming out back where we were outside going over the matches. Yeah, we do that. And he said, "Congratulations, give me a big hug." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You just sent your first guy to the WWE." And as a Bull got called up, he said, "Yeah, we got to get him off TV tonight." So we had to come up with an angle to get him out of there and to elevate Sylvester Turkey and to get Bull Buchanan called up to the WWE. Mark Henry only thought he was going to be here for 2 weeks. He noticed that I was booking him to do a lot of personal appearances. He calls me out back. He says, "Kenny, why are you booking me on all these personal appearances?" And he says, "They're free." I said, "Yeah, it's part of what we do for our sponsors down here." I said, "We do free ones for them." Well, number one, I don't work for free. And number two, I'm only going to be here a couple of weeks. I'm just down there helping out. I said, "Well, Mark, you might want to call somebody because I've been told you're going to be here for quite some time." And Mark was here for quite some time. He was at the old building. He was at the new building. And they basically wanted him to drop some weight and improve his ring ability. And then eventually he got called back up and everything went very good for him. So,
unlike Rene Dupree.
Now that we've addressed Dave Martin, and if he has any other smart ass remarks, I will request you to block him, and then he can be unblocked at a later time.
No problem. I wanted to start off by mentioning that the focus of this show is to look at shooters in MMA, but
you mean other than me, other than
yourself, and I know you've had a part of my introduction that I scuttled was the fact that you're a man of many talents in the pro wrestling business, including color commentary, and you did step into the ring on more than a few occasions. The record, the win-loss record was what it was, but you still have wrestled, and the focus of the show is to talk about.
Well, wait a minute. You're trying to cast a little shade on my one-loss record. Let me go over that with you real quick. Have you ever beaten Mark Henry?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever beaten the Big Show?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever beaten Jerry the King Lawler?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever beaten, and I'll cap it off with this, and there were others. There were many others, but have you ever beaten John Cena?
No, and I don't.
All you got to do is go on YouTube and do a YouTube search. If you people out there can figure that part of the program out, you YouTube search Kenny Bolin. But I think we got the correct spelling up here. Kenny Bolin versus. You got to do versus. Don't do any other combination because you're probably going to get our promos or another match or whatever. Kenny Bolin versus John Cena, and you will see me in a wrestling match with John Cena from 2002, and I won't bother to tell you who won the match. So don't be glossing over my one-loss record. The ones I won were pretty goddamn good.
Yes,
the midget beat me, though. The midget beat me.
It says, according to Cage Match, the Internet Wrestling Database.
Block Robert Sampson if you have the ability to do that.
Will do.
Yeah, he's a troller. He's a scumbag troller. Just block him, whatever you got to do.
While I'm doing that, I'm gonna jump in and tag into my partner, the King of Connecticut. King, we started off Connecticut.
What's going on,
gentlemen? My apologies. I was on another podcast for this lovely wine, the Real Chooch Wine Company, Capiche. Your king wears many hats. I'm partner in this winery based out of Boca
Raton,
Florida.
King title there, son. Careful throwing that around.
And this wine, this Capiche wine, we just polished.
Are you sober right? Are you sober right now, sir? Are you sober?
I am sobering up now, Mr. Bolin.
Okay.
I have a cappuccino and I'm about to light a cigar, and I have a shirt on with the fishes because certain individuals might be sleeping with the fishes soon. We'll just allude to that based on recent events. It is my pleasure to be on here, and I want to address something in a roundabout way.
Sure.
Regarding one of our past guests who is very tight with me, almost family with me. And I will simply say this. I wish my friend the best. I come from a very long line of Irish grifters and Sicilian gangsters, and I don't judge any man.
Well, there you go.
So it's great to be back. Real Shooters, Kenny Bolin, fresh off of the Capiche Wine podcast.
Yeah.
And the gentleman himself right there, Mr. Jack Kilby, the ultimate white meat baby face, the ultimate Wonder Bread, Mr. Jack Kilby, my co-host. Cheers, guys. I'll cheers.
Does he smell like Ricky Morton? That's all I want to know. Does he smell like Ricky Morton?
I'm going to say no.
By the way, Sean McAllister has donated twice as much on your show as he did on mine last night. Shame on you, Sean. Save that money for the Star Maker Bolin show, for crying out loud. I'm glad I'm not using my background because the King of Connecticut would blend right in. Now, King of Connecticut, I see you over there drinking wine and smoking cigars and all that. You ain't by any chance got a beautiful crown sitting around by you there like I got here on my desk, do you?
I do not, and I've never defeated the likes of Jerry the King Lawler or John Cena, so I bow down to you.
Well, you gotta add that to your list of accomplishments, and I guess when you beat the king, you get to be the king. Maybe Ric Flair should have used that as part of his slogan, I guess.
Absolutely, and I've long admired your business acumen with the Kroger deal, and you are a wise man.
Well, the people like to try to shame me about the Kroger. They've actually lowered themselves to calling it a meat scam. Jimmy Cornette himself called it a meat opportunity. Let's call it what it was. And they act like they're exposing. So Kenny was involved in a meat scam. I said, you dumb fuck. It's in the whole story's in the book. When you talk about,
stories. you talk about Jimsy and you talk about meat, it makes me think of him stroking the old tennis racket while
He did
his
stroke that
prize
racket
efforts
quite a
get
bit, didn't he?
inseminated.
Yeah, he did strike. Now I understand. I found out in the pre-show before we went live with all the rednecks out there that that you were once managed by Jimmy Cornette back in 2016. Is there any truth to that rumor?
This is absolutely true. It was for Ken and Lisa Cantrell,
I know
lovely
Ken and
people.
Lisa. They follow me on Facebook. I've never met them in person, but we followed each other on Facebook for a long, long time. So I know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, they were lovely people, and Jimsy did manage me for the match I had
Jimsy,
against.
you seem closer with. I've known Jimmy for 45 years. We haven't spoken 5, but you seem a little closer with. I never called him Jimsy. You seem a little closer to Jimmy than I was.
I don't want to comment on what went down with the possible insemination.
We don't want to get the show taken off the air, getting all those details. So that's all right. I got you.
Well, but I will say this. Jimsy was a pleasure to work with in person when we cut promos together and so forth. But it was more what happened after the match in the behind the scenes and the hot tub stuff that's been chronicled.
First of all, we got another uneducated fan here that don't know shit. There is many best of OVW DVDs. Most of them feature me, by the way. But no, there's a couple that were sold even at Walmart, some best of OVW DVDs. And I have made quite a few that I sold over the years. And someone posted over, didn't you used to make Jimmy Cornette's DVDs for him? Yeah, I did. Now, if you want to call that coattail riding, he paid me for a service and he paid me half what other people paid me to do. So if that is coattail riding and that I was working for him for half price to make DVDs for him for quite a few years, then yeah, I guess I rode his coattails to half the money he owes me. There we go. Plus, I never got paid on his podcast. You know what my pay was to do his podcast? When I am 4 of the top 5 rated shows ever in the history of the Jim Cornette Experience, I'm 4 of the top 5. You know who beat me? It wasn't Jim Ross. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I'll take a loss to Stone Cold, even though I've done his show a couple of times too. But no, get out of here. This coat riding shit. And there are many actual best of DVDs, but I am the best that was ever in OVW. I am only one of 5 Hall of Famers. The other one's Danny Davis. The other one is Dean Hill, Jim Cornette, myself, and another referee I'm blanking out on this, Joe Wheeler. That's your 5. Now, who do you think people are going to pay money to see? It would be me. Who sent 54, counting Cena, to the WWE? That would be me. How many did Jimmy send? How many did his wife send? 1. It was Dave Bautista. She can have that one. So,
which brings me to one of the.
Have you noticed that Jack Kilby hasn't got to say jack shit since me and you took over?
That's all good. I'm just the host. I'm not the draw.
There you go.
But I wanted to just start off with asking you about which I initially broached about the shooters that you've worked with in the wrestling industry. Starting off with a man who I don't believe is as appreciated as he should be, and that's the first man you managed, Tojo Yamamoto.
Yeah, he was my very first, thanks to Nick Goulas, basically hiring me out of a service merchandise in Nashville, Tennessee, Antioch, Tennessee, to be exact. Nick lived in Franklin, Tennessee, and I remember when he had me over to his house, he had those, not seagulls, but the flamingos. His yard was full of those pink flamingos, not real ones, the ones on a stick. And his house was the same color as those flamingos. So you couldn't miss his house, and it was on the corner. It was on the corner, so you couldn't miss his house. And but no, he hired me out of a service merchandise, and he hired me to book the buildings, to be the announcer, and then he asked me if I would like to be the ring announcer in Birmingham, Alabama, which is his hometown. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. And so they hired me to be the ring announcer. I get there, I'm the timekeeper, the ring announcer, and then Tojo's match came up. And they said Tojo had requested me to be his manager when he found out I wanted to be a manager. He said, this is a good night to bring him in. He was wrestling Gypsy Joe that night. So I, not knowing exactly how the pay scale worked in pro wrestling, he agreed he agreed to pay me $75 a night because I was booking the buildings and everything. So he was paying me a little bit more than he was some of the other guys. And so for $75, I said, okay, I ring announce, that's 75. I time kept, so that's 75. And I managed Tojo, so that's 75. So I went to him at the end of the show, told him how much they owed me. And he said that he would work with me on it. And I said, well, okay, but that's the pay. I did 3 jobs. I get 3 pays. I found out later that that's not how the wrestling business works. And if you do 3 jobs, you still get 1 pay, at least with most promotions. So he finally paid me my 75. And that was like pulling teeth to get that for that first week in the business. But I had to go to his house like 3 times to get that money. George Goulas answered the door one night. I'm down to have George on the show because I saw a picture of him and I had to look real close to even realize it was him. But I go to I've gone to his house like 3 times to get paid. Well, they owed me $150 by then. He owed me for 2 shows. And I go to the door to see him. My wife at that time, Gabrielle, was telling me, you need to go over there and get paid. You did the work. Go over there and get paid. So I knock on the door and he said, well, Dad's not here. I said, well, where's Dad at? He said, well, I don't know. He's gone. I said, well, he owes me $150. I said, I don't guess you could pay that for him and have him reimburse you, could you? No, Kenny, I ain't got any cash on me. He said, but Dad's not here. And walking right behind him is Nick Goulas in a fucking bathrobe. And I said, well, if you turn to look behind you, I think you're going to see your dad right behind you in a bathrobe. So he said, oh, Dad must have just got home. I said, well, where did Dad go in a bathrobe? So that gig was up. And then finally Nick comes to the door and he's fumbling around trying to find the cash to give me and paid me my money, I guess, to just keep me from coming over so much. So that's how that went.
You know, Nick Goulas, I had heard a lot of stories about one of the reasons Jimsy really popped when I was introduced to him was my old coach and mentor was Billy Wicks that did the forward to my book, to the Rough and Tumble book. Mm-hmm. And he worked for old Nick Goulas. So
did he really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's one thing Cornette was jealous of. He says, you've actually worked for the promoter that I never got to work for. He said, I never got to work for Nick Goulas. And
well, you know, people will know Billy Wicks from the Sputnik Monroe because that's way back in the day. The Billy Wicks Sputnik Monroe feud, and Jimsy really.
Sputnik Monroe, I think, is the one that opened the door to get blacks more opportunities in wrestling and for fans to be treated fairly at wrestling shows. And I was told that in Memphis. Now, I didn't experience this personally, but I was told by many people in Memphis that there were 3 pictures hanging up in people's houses. Picture of Jesus Christ, picture of Martin Luther King, picture of Sputnik Monroe.
I was actually just going to say that. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I'd heard.
He did so much.
Block Servop. He's a troller that we've blocked on every format you can possibly find. He's just he's just a piece of shit. Y'all can. If y'all want to unblock him when I'm not here, that's fine. But I don't put up with these idiots. So
we're getting all of Mr. Bolin's.
Well, see, the trollers can't get through on my show, so they salivate for when they hear I'm going to go on another show. Because then the trollers who don't get any attention, they have no life. They live in their father's basements, their mother's basements, or in a cardboard box under the bridge down the street here. And this is their opportunity. Oh, I'm going to be recognized. Somebody might see me. Oh my God, the king will finally see my name, and then we get rid of them in a matter of seconds. So. Don't worry, for you trolls.
I have to ask you, Mr. Bolin, are these Jimsy's trolls? From his
no,
from his army cult of Cornette?
Nah, these are just basically trolls that I got rid of on my show for either being racist or posting stupid shit or anti-vaxxers, just whatever the fuck to piss me off, and then I get rid of them, and then they just lose their fucking minds. It was explained to me by Mary Trump of all people. The niece of Donald Trump explained it that you have broken up with them and they can't get over it. You open the doors and let them into your life. And this happens with a lot of people way more famous than I'll ever hope to be. But once you befriend them and let them in your life and then you get rid of them, they can't fucking take it. And it's the dispersed girlfriend or boyfriend syndrome. Well, you know, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Why did he get rid of me? And now I get blocked all the time, basically for my political views, maybe wrestling views or whatever the reason. I never give a shit. I saw a guy named Max Mueller the other day. He's been a longtime fan of the show, followed me on Twitter for years and years and years, donates all the time. And I send him a link to the show and I see something come up that I can't send him the link. And I click it and Max Mueller has blocked you. I don't know. I don't know what I did unless he's a diehard Trump supporter and I didn't know it. But good. Okay. Move on. I'm not going to look him up on other accounts. Max, why did you block me? Oh, and then troll him every fucking where he goes. But this is what these stupid fucks do. This has been going on for years. I've had trollers that have made thousands of accounts over 5 years. Thousands of accounts for me. No more fucking fame than I got. And they can't get over that I got rid of them. One of them's in Australia. One of them's a female in Virginia. 3 of them in Southern Indiana. But my friend that's in here tonight's not one of them. But they just fucking can't get over it. And I don't know if you've experienced that or not. But boy, as long as you're playing ball with them and give them what they want, they're your buddy for life. But I've got morals and standards. And when you cross those things, I'll give you a warning. And like if you're in here posting pro-Trump shit or anti-COVID shit, you get a warning. And then if you're stupid enough to do it again, then fuck you, you're gone. So
how in the world did Jimsy get to be the arbiter?
Again, I'm going to call him Jimsy. What I'm going to do.
How in the hell did he get to be the arbiter of rest? I mean, he was a colorful manager. The most athletic thing he ever did was to dangle off that scaffold.
And this is coming
he was a comedy manager. How did he get to be the arbiter?
Did you hear what Vince Russo said about that scaffold? Because they claimed that was the most famous thing. And like you said, maybe the most athletic thing he ever did. And he did it by accident. And the funny thing was, he says, but like a mark, Jimmy Cornette fell from a scaffold. He blamed the guy that didn't catch him, and he blew out both of his knees, and he had to miss countless weeks in wrestling. He says, Bolin, you were there that night. I said, I offered to take over for him. Introduce me to these people. No one knows your team better than I do. I can talk almost as good as you. I'm not good at recited shit, but I'm good at off-the-fly shit. And especially back in my fucking 20s and 30s. Memory's so bad now, I forget what show I'm on. But I was ready to take over, and he knows damn well. And you know what he told me? In my hand to whatever it is you believe in. I'm an atheist, but hey, whatever you believe in is fine with me. My hand to whatever you believe in. Jimmy says, no, I'm not going to turn over the Midnight Express to you, because if I do, I won't have a job when I get back. I said, you're a fucking idiot. Because what we do is that we make Bobby and Dennis at that time, we make Bobby and Dennis not want to come back with you. And they said, no, we're doing real good here. We're tag champ or whatever the hell. And the life's pretty good over here. Take some more time. I'll take another 6 weeks off. Take another 8. Kenny's got this. You heal up. You look like you're limping a little bit. So we already had a story worked out. And Jimmy, he did not want to be a part of it. He says, I will not. And I know why, because when he worked in Memphis, he was second billing to Jimmy Hart and maybe even to Downtown Bruno. So they had 3 managers there, and Jimmy was always on the B shows. Bill Dundee and Jimmy did the B shows. Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler got the A shows. Well, he was never going to take a chance with me being in the same territory with him, to where if by any chance the fans hated me more than they hated him, and there's a good chance of that, that he was going to be bumped to the B shows again. He did not want that. And he can say whatever the fuck he wants. And yeah, he is great at recited material. But I already know who said it first and who said it better before he says it. And Jerry Lawler is great at reciting joke books. Lawler's got fucking one-liners out the ass. I've forgotten more one-liners than he could probably say in a night. But that was not my expertise. My expertise was being able to come up with something off the fly. I've never ducked doing interviews like this or for anybody or any questions off the chart. No, ask whatever the fuck you want, and I'll either find a way around it or I'll answer it. You know, you're not going to rattle me. Fuck, I've been dealing this shit for 40 years now, I guess, give or take. Sales and marketing for fucking 35 years. What are you going to throw at me that I haven't dealt with? So I don't worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I guess what I want to know though is
I probably didn't even remotely answer your question, did I?
No. I want to kind of clarify the question though, because what I'm trying to figure out is, to me, Jimsy was the colorful comedy manager, the colorful comedic character. When did he become the arbiter of pure wrestling to this large audience of this cult of Cornette? And I'll tell you guys a quick story, man. I was in South Carolina with a beautiful young lady, Kanata. Great singer. And we were at this karaoke club, right? A little small, intimate, little karaoke spot. And I like to croon a little bit. I like to do a little Dean Martin, a little Sinatra, a little Elvis. And she and I were there.
Hunger burning love, you're saying. A little hunger burning
Oh, yeah.
love.
Oh, yeah.
You're a
And
beautiful
so we're there singing, and the guys got wrestling on from early 90s, like
Block
right
Gary
around
for
late
being a
80s,
dick,
early
and
90s.
He's right. I haven't had a job for 30 years, but block him anyway for being a dick. Goodbye, Gary. Goodbye, Gary, you dumb fuck.
So the guy who owns this, who runs or owns this little karaoke spot, he's got on the TV some old school wrestling, like
That's
80s,
not
early
Bayless,
90s.
by the way.
And so I figured, I started talking to the guy, and I gave him my business card, try to get some leads, of course, for Berman Law Group, our firm. If anyone's been injured anywhere in all 50 states, they can, as Jack knows, they can message the king, and we will take care of you. So I give my card to this fellow, and so I thought nothing of it, right? And he had mentioned that he was a big Jim Cornette guy. He's like, I'm a Cornette guy,
He's got a ton of them.
I get a message last year, because I did a commentary on Jimsy last year on Christmas, after he went after the Hamsel, all in capitals. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You're
talking to me. You're talking to me.
And so I'm like, you know what? Who are you, first of all? Because it was coming from a cell number at 803 Columbia, South Carolina.
Block Gregor. I've lost 280 pounds, and he's trying to throw a diet plan at me. I look better in your fucking ugly ass, you bitch. So goodbye.
So anyway,
so this guy, all these dumb fucks after the show. I don't care. But
anyway,
I'm not here to be harassed by stupid people.
Right. This guy is furious. And it took me a while to get
and you just gave him a business card out of the blue.
He was furious over the commentary I did here on Hannibal.
One of these, and all your info's on the back, and then they fucking stalk you with it and lose their mind because you had an opinion. Yeah.
But this guy was a cult of Cornette guy, and he didn't like the Jimsy commentary I did, where I talked about my experience of Jimsy wanting to offer up his prize heifer.
You don't know how much I like
the tennis racket in the corner.
You don't know how much I like that you call him Jimsy. That is fucking cool. I like that.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, this guy was irate, and this is just a random karaoke bar owner. When did Jimsy go from being this colorful commentary manager who was second tier, really? I mean, the top tier were Captain Lou Albano. How did he?
I'm going to answer it for you. For all the Trumpers that are in here, back when me and Jimmy were friends and I was doing his show on a regular basis, I would call him out for being, you're not a Democrat, you're a Republican. Just stop it. And you're more like Trump than Donald Trump is. And this was before Trump had actually been voted in at this time. And I pointed out to him, you're more like Trump than Trump is, because what Jimmy does is that he says all the racist shit, all the homophobic shit, all the transgender shit, all the stuff that I don't know, I hope there's not many of them in here, but there probably is, that these people just wish they had the fucking guts to say in a public forum and get by with it. But they don't. They come in here, they have fake names, fake pictures, fake profiles, and they're chicken shits, and they're all over fucking Twitter and Facebook and all these places, and they say all the fucking shit that they could never say under their real name and a real picture, like I do, Jimmy does, and various others. But unfortunately, Jimmy uses his platform because he learned, like Donald Trump did, there's a specific audience out there that loves for you, like what decent human being calls congresswomen and refers to them by their race and tells them to go back to where they came from when they were born in this fucking country? Who does that? But there's a group of people out there that thrive off of that. They thrive off hate and to bash transgenders and people that aren't like them. That's the basic thing. Well, there's a shitload of fucking people that ain't like me. I'm an atheist. But so is Jimmy. But Jimmy wasn't always an atheist. He didn't become an atheist until his mother passed away. And when his mother passed away, he says, Kenny, I'm with you. There is no God. I said, why is that? I've known you your whole life. Well, why now is there no God? He says, no God would let my mother die the way she did. He said, that woman was a saint. I said, we'll agree on that. I said, your mother was a hell of a good woman. I said, and I agree. And I said, but that is where I come into, and I don't mean to take the show down this direction, but what God would let babies get blown away in tornadoes and floods and churches, and to die these horrible deaths? And well, it was an act of God. Okay, well, why did the baby have to die? Well, it was God's will. Okay, well, why, y'all believe in the devil too, so why don't you blame the bad shit on the devil? And when something good happens, why don't we give that one to God? Why don't we do that? Heels and faces. It's just like wrestling. But you're giving God because we do all these prayers and we pray 1,000 prayers, and 99.99999% of the time, the prayer does not get answered. But the one time it does, oh, thank God. Well, what about the 99% of the time, 0.9999, that it didn't? Well, it was God's will. Yeah. So God would rather shit on you 99.999% of the time because he's got another plan. So why are you wasting your time fucking praying?
Yeah, there's an old saying. If there is a God, there's an old saying. If there is a God,
I'm never going to convince people there's not. You're never going to convince
me. I was just going to tell you, Kenny, there's an old saying, if there is a God, he's got a lot of explaining to do. But that doesn't, but that doesn't, that doesn't,
money. And he needs money.
But Kenny, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I'm wrong, but from the clips I've seen of Jimsy's program, he's more just going off on Hannibal and Vince Russo. He's not
Kenny
talking
Omega, calling him Twinkle.
Yeah. But
then he got recorded in that. He got recorded in that car with those guys saying the N-word. Yeah. I think the count was 16 times. It got released on YouTube here not all that long ago. If any of us, the rest of us, do that, we're done. If it doesn't take 16 times saying the word, it takes one. Mm-hmm. We're fucking done. Joe Rogan and Cornette are the two that can get by with it. Why? Because they got that core audience that thrives on dispersing that hate that they don't have the guts to do, that they're too chicken shit to do if that's really how they feel. So they filter through Jimmy and they worship Jimmy and they worship Trump because he says and does all the shit they wish they had the guts to do. And that's why I analyze you real quickly. If you worship Donald Trump, hang on. If you worship Donald Trump, you've already told me who you are. You like a womanizer. You like a guy who's accused of rape and sexual assault 13 times. That's just the ones that are going to court. You've got no problem with tax fraud. You got no problem with draft dodging, which I would have probably done that. I got no desire to fight other people's wars. But just name all the shit that he stands for. Well, my mother taught me very early in life, you are who you stand by. And I've gotten rid of a lot of family members that are racist. I got rid of my own father, who was my biological father, was the lead of the KKK in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, he didn't raise me. I was raised by other racists. And, but he was the creme de la creme of the racist. And when I didn't meet him for the first time as an adult till 1979. And then he explained to me what he did and that that got disbanded and they had to form the Freemasons. So that gave me a heads up on the Freemasons. And I'm not going to say all the Freemasons are like this, but his was, and many others are. And I said, well, how are you getting by? He said, well, we got it beat. We hire a black man to manage the door and we pay him well. And you can't call us racist because we got a black guy working for us.
Is Jimsy a Freemason?
No, Jimmy's not, but I've got wrestling friends that are. I won't name them, but no. Now, Jimmy was a Kentucky colonel. Whether or not he still is or not, I don't know. But Jimmy was an only child, but his mother wasn't like that. His mother was certainly not a racist. Many of the people she worked with at the Louisville Gardens, even in the early 70s and mid 70s, were black. And you probably know, well, I don't know how old you are, but racism in the 70s, you think we'd be a lot further down the road today than we were then?
Oh yeah,
I don't
think
that's
what I said. Back in the day with Sputnik, he helped to stop that segregation. But I think what I'm missing the point with Jimmy. I understand what you're saying.
Some dickhead in here's mad. Charles, whatever his name. What a fucking loser. Well, go. No one made you come here, dick.
What? But Kenny, what does that have to do with Jimsy? Because if I'm not mistaken, his show, he just bashes certain people in wrestling, and he's this arbiter of pure wrestling. And it makes no sense.
You do know why he's not welcome at most wrestling companies, right? I don't think I have to tell you. Bashing Muslims, making racist jokes about chicken, bashing transgenders, bashing gays, and he not only does it on his podcast, he's done it on live television shows. And that's why I can't name any company that would risk bringing him back. Trust me, he would love to be in the spotlight. In my heart of hearts, I know he was working an angle to come back to AEW and to get a feud going with the Young Bucks. But the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega don't want anything to do with him. And I'm pretty sure they still don't. Now, in the sake of money and making a buck, can you come to an agreement? I guess it's possible, but television advertisers speak very big, and they may not want to associate themselves with that. So if anybody in here is getting pissed over that shit, get over it, because it's the fucking truth. And
Yeah,
but that is why his fans worship him so much. That's as clear as I can make that. It's the Trump syndrome. He says that we're too chicken shit to do, and that's why this little fucking loser in here wants to bail out, because he can't handle the fucking truth.
Well, Kenny, I may be mistaken, but doesn't Jimsy bash Trump on his show, or is that just all a facade?
Absolutely, he does. And for people that go back and listen to our old shows, I said, why are you bashing him? Because he's better at doing you than you. Why is it? You're just like him. You're just like him. Trump bashes transgenders. He bashes gays. He acts like he knows something about the Bible, and he don't. Jimmy probably, I'll give him this, he probably knows more about the Bible than Trump does. Because if Jimmy knows anything about the Bible, he knows more than Trump. So, I mean, the man held the goddamn thing upside down and had black people shot with rubber bullets and gas so he could go for a photo op when they were protesting out in front of the Capitol or the White House. So, yeah, let's see, a sexy king child about when people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stuff.
Kenny, were you there?
We'll block Kenny just for being a dick. I do have big ass fucking windows, and I throw a lot of rocks. So whatever that.
Were you there when Jimsy slapped Santino?
I was there that night. Absolutely, I had Santino on my show a few months ago, and we talked about it. But see, for whatever reason, your show is drawing a lot of these Trumpers and these Cornette people. But maybe because they know I'm here. I don't know. But it drives them fucking nuts. They can't fucking take it. They can't handle the truth. I got nothing to fucking hide. People in glass. Man, I was raised by the leader. Well, not raised, but had to be partially spawned by the leader of the KKK. Racism ran rampant in my family. I was raised by 4 families. You were taught the N-word at a very fucking young age. And as I got older and realized, hey, these are fucking people. But if you were different than a white rising, which is what I was raised as, if you were different and if you weren't white, you were a problem. You shouldn't live in our neighborhood. You shouldn't have a house bigger and better than mine. You shouldn't have a job better than mine. I'm smarter than you because this was all the shit I was fucking raised with. And finally, at about age 30, well, God, I think I made a stand on religion at age 7 in school when I refused to put my hand over my heart and pledge allegiance to a flag or close my eyes during prayer because I didn't believe then. And then you're made to go to church by your parents, and then you notice they're not going. So, but at age 11, I told my parents, I'm not going anymore. Y'all don't go. Y'all use it as a babysitter, and I don't believe any of this shit anyway. I said, all I do is I go in there and I hear all the hypocrites talking about who's sleeping with who, all the gossip. I said, that's true.
I'll tell you something that I learned about living in the South, Kenny, and I think you'll get a kick out of this.
How long did you live in the South, and where did you live?
Well, I lived in South Carolina.
That's the South you can get.
Yeah, I was down in the Lake Murray area outside Columbia. I had a place there for 14 years.
Block, actually, she's been trying to get her shit in for quite some time.
And I'm going to tell you guys a funny story here that typifies what I learned about the really people who claim to be real religious in the South. So I'm at the gym when I moved down there. This was like 16, 17 years ago. And there's this girl at the front desk, Megan, attractive, blonde, nice and very full bodied. Right. And this was when, Facebook was kind of a newer thing. And she goes, we're starting to chatting with her. And she goes, yeah, this is my Facebook, but follow this other Facebook account. Now, if you went on to Megan's Facebook account, she was the most pious girl. She had She said, "I devote myself to my
Ashley's
husband,
still here, Jack. Ashley's
and
still.
Bible verses and everything."
Hey,
And then she had this
when I give people money, I give them $666, Ashley, just so you know. So fuck.
and then she had this other account that was down
Well,
and dirty
RJ, leave.
under.
If Bolin's garbage, leave. Nobody fucking made you come here, you dumb fuck. So go.
So she was
I'll
down and
run all
dirty,
your viewers off before I'm done.
down and dirty under an alias, and that's what I found.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the
Very
people
common.
who were the most religious were oftentimes, or up front, the most religious were the opposite when you actually got to know who they really were. The people that try to put that out there in your face. But I never thought that Jimsy at any point was pushing his religion on people. This is what I'm confused about.
Well, after his mother died, he didn't have any religion to push. It's like myself. Atheism is almost a religion to a degree, because we don't buy any of it. We don't. There's no hell. There's no heaven. You're gone. You're gone. It's all over. But you know, somewhere between, depending on what poll you believe, somewhere between 78% of the world, not only the country, 78% of the world believe in something, one way or the other, or at least that's what they tell you. Now, when I travel, there was one time I made a trip to Knoxville, Tennessee. We were driving from Louisville to Knoxville, and there's 5 of us in the car. All of these guys are now were WWE stars, and we're talking about religion and politics a little bit on the trip down, and it came out. I said, "Well, you guys know I'm an atheist. I don't buy that shit." And then the guy says to me, who's still in the WWE right now, he says, "Well, I'm an atheist." And the other guy, who was an ROH in the WWE, he says, "Well, I'm an atheist." And then the other guy from the back, who is still in the WWE, "Well, I'm an atheist." So we had 5 atheists in one fucking car, but 84%, 78 to 84%, depending on what you believe in God. But 5 of us were in one car by accident and didn't know. They probably knew I was atheist. I did not know they were. Now, do their families know is probably a whole nother story, because you just can't. It's like being gay. Some people cannot ever come out because it'll cause them too many problems. If you say when's the last time you saw somebody run for president that said, "Well, I don't believe in God, but you know what? I'm your man." There'll never be one, because you lose 78 to 84% of the vote. I'm amazed when I see gay governors, gay mayors get in, because there's just too many fucking people that just hate them because they're different. And I didn't understand it either when I was a kid. I didn't understand being gay or lesbian or as a matter of fact, probably the reason I became an atheist, the most loving, caring man I knew was my Uncle Charlie, who lived in the Cincinnati area, and he was the sweetest, kindest man I ever knew. And all the fucking crooks and cons were the goddamn Bible thumpers. The atheist was gold. And I was young. I'm 9, 10, 11 years old. And I'm seeing, well, this is the guy I want to be like. I don't want to be like these assholes. You know, they're always trying to fuck somebody out of something, you know. So, and every atheist I've ever known has always been good to me. And so finally, that's just what I declared. And I had to tell my girlfriend at a very young age, she wanted me to, what do you call it? Convert to be a Catholic. I said, "Well, honey," I said, "I was raised a Baptist." I said, "I didn't buy their shit." I said, "The other half of the family was mostly Catholic. I didn't buy their shit. And now in order to marry you, I have to become Catholic." I said, "No,
well,
thanks. I'm going to be
Kenny with all the championships and all the guys you beat. I think you might need to start the Church of Bolin and have folks worship you."
It'll look like some of these spot towns I used to work in. It'll be half a house.
If I could jump in here, Kenny, you touched.
No, absolutely not. You've been doing just fine doing what you're doing. Stay out of this.
You touched on your victory over the prototype John Cena.
Yes, I did.
And I know that he's back in the headlines, making a return to WWE recently.
I haven't.
And I'm just wondering if you have any interesting anecdotes
tonight. Go ahead.
Do you have any interesting anecdotes regarding your time with him that the Hannibal TV viewers would be interested in hearing about?
I've told it on a few shows before. John and I did not hang out at my house as much as me and most of the other wrestlers did. And there was a reason for it. And I don't think John denies this to this day. If you watch The Peacemaker, you'll see it. John had an amazing fascination, and I've told the story before, for porn. He liked to watch porn. And when he got broadband internet for the first time wherever he lived, because I'd invite him over, we'd all get together and watch Raw and SmackDown and critique matches. And hey, this was good, this was bad. You should work on this. You should do this. You don't ever do this. Shit like that. And hell, Batista came over all the time, and Lesnar and Randy Orton, Shelton Benjamin, John Cena, Rico Constantino practically lived with me for 3 years. Aaron the Idol Stevens lived with me for a couple of years. And we'd just have big get-togethers, and I had catering deals worked out to where if we'd sign autographs for these restaurants, they'd deliver a shitload of food for us for free. So it was a good deal, and we charged admission for the pay-per-views because they could come hang out with the wrestlers, and we'd make $300 or $400 a night letting fans come over and watch wrestling pay-per-views with us. So where was I going with that stuff? Oh, so John, we couldn't get him over much. I said, well, why ain't you coming over? Well, goddamn, Kenny, I got broadband internet. I'm going to go home and watch porn. And that's what he would say. I don't have proof that that's what he was doing, but that was the excuse he'd give us. And but when he did hang out with us, I remember we went to Danny Davis's house one night. We called it Mount St. Davis. And we ordered chicken wings from BW3s, or I think it was BW3s. And I think Danny ordered 500 chicken wings. John Cena ate 123 chicken wings by himself because it was his cheat day. 123 chicken wings. And I remember I took Mark Henry to Steak and Shake one night. Mark hung out with me all the time as well. And Mark once ate $80 worth of Steak and Shake. Thank God I didn't have to pay for it because it was a barter deal. $80 worth of steak, 83 to be exact, worth of Steak and Shake. But so Cena could eat. And I invited him over for Papa John's Pizza one night, and he ate a whole pizza by himself because it was cheat day. So he could eat like a motherfucker. He loved porn. And last I heard, he still has the red Jeep he had when he was here in OVW. And I would assume he's got the money to fix it up now. but now John, even though he's my biggest claim to fame, he and I hung out the least because, well, fuck, he's John Cena. He can get any goddamn woman he wants. He wants to be out with dating women, I guess. And the other guys wanted to learn more about wrestling. But John didn't, but can't criticize how it worked out for John. Everything worked out pretty good.
We had another question.
Well, Kenny can't eat very many chicken wings now because Kenny had weight loss surgery about 3 years ago when I was nearly 600 fucking pounds. And I just recently got under the 299 mark. So regardless, yeah, I'm still big, but I can't even eat like a half a quarter pound burger anymore. I have to eat them half at a time. It's great when I go out to a restaurant. If they load you up with food, it's 6 meals. If I get one of these big ass burritos, well, I'll come home, make a little bit more rice to go with it. And I can get 6 meals out of a giant ass burrito. So not that much anymore. But if you eat enough carbs and enough sugar, you can still keep weight on. I mean, you do have to still stick to the diet even after weight loss surgery. Many of the people, there's 30 some odd people that had weight loss surgery when I did, and just about every one of them are bigger now than they were for the surgery. Well, I was 589 pounds the day of surgery, and just recently finally clicked the 299 mark. So y'all make all the fat jokes you want. I'm very proud of what I've done because even with weight loss surgery, it's not easy. And you go through, they do everything they can to talk you out of doing it because it's not easy. It's not an easy program to stay on. And if you don't take it seriously, you fuck yourself up. My mobility sucks because my knees hurt real bad. 600 pounds did a lot of damage to my knees over the years. So my mobility ain't worth a shit, but I feel better. I don't cough through interviews the way I used to. I go back and I look at the old videos and my head's twice the size it is now. And I'm coughing through. And I didn't even realize I was that bad off. You couldn't convince me that I was near death. Trust me, if I didn't get that surgery 3 years ago, me and Luger would be having a meeting somewhere tonight. Have we ever confirmed if that's true or not?
Can't find anything on.
It could be a troll. Who the fuck? It could be a troll just looking for attention. Who knows?
What is that now?
Someone posted right at the beginning of the show that Lex Luger dead at age 61, and here I am turning 63 in March. So anytime anyone around my age dies, like we've had a lot of them do recently.
Was that a hoax or was that anybody?
Well, we don't know because it just popped up in here, and I haven't. I mean, let me check my iPhone and see if I've. Because normally I got all the marks will write me and tell me when big news like that happens, and no one is saying anything about it. So it could be just a troll. Well, let's hope it was.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
the owner and arbiter of this channel, Hannibal, wanted me to ask you, Kenny, if you were around in OVW when a gentleman by the name of Robbie Dix and Batista had a,
yeah.
fight. Do you have any recollection of that?
I didn't get to see it personally. Slick Robbie D was he could handle himself pretty good. And I do remember when Slick Robbie D got arrested in California and he went to jail and they claimed he committed suicide. Me and Mark Henry certainly agree on this. Slick Robbie D was not a suicide type of guy. And apparently he had a relationship with the sheriff's daughter in California, and he ends up dead in jail. So do the math. But Mark Henry and I both agree it is not like him to commit suicide. And he could stand in the corner and jump to the top rope without taking a step. I think they call it a standing jump. And he could do it any fucking time he wanted. He was probably the greatest athlete in the history of OVW. The only other one that would have competed with him is Shelton Benjamin.
So is the story that he put the beat down on Batista?
Everyone I heard that saw it said Batista never had a fucking chance.
Yeah.
That it was bad. Now I didn't see it personally. I didn't see it personally. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But I never talked to one person that said that Batista got the best of him.
Yeah. Now, on that note, Kenny, with Jerry Lawler's son passing in prison, do you think there was you being kind of close to Lawler and having defeated him?
Right.
Do you think that there's any truth to the fact that
Lawler thinks there is, and that's good. He's the father, and he knows the situation obviously way better than any of the rest of us. I would defer to him and his thoughts, and he thinks there's some nefarious shit going on. I knew Brian. I managed him at the Louisville Gardens a couple of times. Had dinner with him a few times over in Southern Indiana, and was always very good and very nice to me. And I really like Brian. And I'll tell you a funny story about Brian. Y'all know what he was famous for in the WWE. Motherfucker could dance. Jerry Lawler. Have you ever seen Jerry Lawler dance? You ain't going to either. So we're doing a show at Rupp Arena, and I'm just there visiting. Cornette's there, Lawler's there, Brian Christopher, and I don't think any of the OVW boys are on the show that night. So it's before they've opened the gates and let the fans in. So I'm down there hanging out with Lawler and Brian Christopher and a couple others, Cornette. And I see Brian over in one section and Lawler's just off to the left. So I go over to Brian, because Brian's over there just dancing his ass off and getting his routine down for coming out for his interest and everything. And of course, we had Scotty Too Hottie in OVW for a little while too. He came down and worked with us for a few weeks. So I go over to Brian. I said, Brian, I said, I've known your dad since 1974 when I was 14 years old. I've never seen your dad even remotely shake a leg. I said, where did you learn to dance? Oh, easy. BET. He watched BET to learn how to dance. I said, well, I knew you didn't learn it from your dad. He said, oh, God, no. He said, and Lawler just looked at me like, no, what wasn't me. So, but now that was, I'll never forget that story, is that he learned how to dance by watching BET. I don't know how many people he told that to. I don't know how many people I asked him where he learned how to dance. But I tell you what, he had to. And Brian Christopher, what I will give him is it would have been very easy, because if I'd been a wrestler, I would have tried. Hell, you see me still to this day at 62, very proud of the crown. I would have tried to have wrestled just like Jerry Lawler. I would have wore the tights. I would have, if I could grow a decent beard, I'd have had a goatee. I would have parted my hair on the side the way he did back then. And that's why I wanted to be the king of managers, because we already had a king of wrestling. And I thought that I was, even though as an amateur wrestler, I was very good. I was 212-0 at Oldham County High. I found out early on that pro wrestling and amateur wrestling are two different fucking worlds, and you don't get the win just because you want to. And I really
was Jimmy a teammate of yours in high school?
No. Jimmy went to a private school. Go figure. He went to Walden Elementary, and I think their high school was also Walden as well. But Jimmy went to Walden, which was a private school. I think their idea of athletics was the chess team. I don't think they had any other, maybe a badminton team. I don't know. And, but no, I went to Oldham County High, and we had a class of like 900 people, at Oldham County High for the, freshman, junior, sophomore, junior, seniors, probably close to 1,000 of us, give or take. and hell, the graduating class was nearly 400 people. So I played baseball, basketball, football, was very good at all of them. But wrestling, I dared anybody to fuck with me in wrestling because I did it with a professional wrestling mentality. I wore Jerry Lawler's tights that he gave me when I was 16 years old in some of my matches. And then they told me I couldn't do that. So I would put on the Oldham County shirt and the Oldham County shorts over the tights and wrestle in it anyway, because there wasn't any rule that said as long as I had the Oldham County shit on. And it inspired me. And I was accused of choking a guy once during an amateur match. And I was, but they didn't believe it. And they let the hold go by. And I was also very good at putting a knuckle at that bone in your chin. And when I would get a headlock on, I would, and that hurts. If you've ever done it, that hurts. And even from a high school kid. Kenny's still residing in Kentucky. Yep.
Well, let me ask you this: with your amateur wrestling prowess and Jimsy's big mouth, did you ever have to help him in your size? Did you ever have to help him? And
we covered that
as
you mentioned that we covered that on many occasions, and I even on the great debate with Jerry Jarrett. I pointed out to him, I said, hey, if it weren't for me, I said, your ass would be dead a long time ago. I said, you and your big fucking mouth and your hummingbird, what was it? Your alligator mouth and your hummingbird rear end got you into a lot of shit you couldn't get out of. There was actually a case when Jimmy and I went to Cincinnati to see Jimmy Snuka. We were teenagers. And we drive from LaGrange. Well, he drives from Middletown to LaGrange to pick me up. We go in his Firebird, drive to Cincinnati to see Jimmy Snuka. We had neither one, to my knowledge, had ever seen him live. I know I hadn't. And that's the only guy in the car that anyone gave a shit about. Jimmy wanted to see Jimmy Superfly Snuka in the main event that night. I've already forgot who the fuck he was wrestling. But Jimmy and I go to the bathroom. He's in a stall, and apparently some bikers came in. And Jimmy, let's face it, in his camera taking days, he looked like a little pussy. He wore the skin tight blue jeans. He didn't have an ass, and they nicknamed him at the Louisville Gardens Satchel Ass because he had no ass. So they nicknamed him Satchel Ass, and he wore those flannel shirts. And he had the glasses and the hair parted on his side. And he looked like the nerdiest guy in the world. But he was still my buddy, because we both love wrestling so much. And he was like a brother to me. He truly was. And but I was the fighter. Jimmy didn't really have much of a mouth back then. If I played you some of the old audio tapes of me and him doing promos, you'd die.
Oh,
baby. I'm handsome Jimmy. I'm so pretty, baby. I remember the tape. I've got the tape around here somewhere. It's on a cassette. But we used to record audio tapes to practice doing promos to see how good we were. And I mimicked Lawler, and Jimmy mimicked handsome Jimmy Valiant. He was Jimmy Valiant. I was Jerry Lawler. But Jimmy didn't really have any fighting skills. And his verbal skills were not that good. And if you watch his early days in his early days in Memphis, his promos were not very good because he was just learning it. And he was a storyteller. And Dutch Mantell and Jerry Lawler coached him on being a mama's boy. Your mama got you everything. If it weren't for your mama Cornette, and always refer to your mama. But if you watch the very early days of Jimmy in Memphis, that's what he was. By the time he went to Dallas and in Louisiana, which I helped him move to, I moved him to Marietta, Louisiana. God, 1985, I think, something around there, maybe 86. No, I left Kroger in 84. So it was before 84 because I still worked at Kroger. And I got engaged in the pale blue, sky blue suit that he gave me because he had grown out of it. And he gave me his blue suit to get engaged in. And I wore a pink shirt with that blue suit. I was looking good, buddy. And got engaged at Chi-Chi's, for those of you that remember Chi-Chi's.
Oh, I remember Chi-Chi's. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Fried ice cream was the best, man. As a matter of fact, I hid the engagement ring in the fried ice cream, and I had to make damn sure that Judy did not eat the ice cream that the ring was hidden in. I had the waiter hide it. So that's how I got engaged. So
Kenny, if I could ask you about one of the individuals that you managed that.
Have I finished one story on here tonight? Because it seems like I'll start it and then I go off, and I probably might be the first person ever with ADD that was incurable. So now go ahead. Did he freeze up?
Are you there, Jack? Gentleman Jack?
He got a chance to speak, and his camera was freaked out, and he didn't know that it was real. Jack finally gets a chance to talk, and then freezes up. Chi-Chi's was the shit. I agree with you, man. Chi-Chi's was great. It was one of my favorite places.
Hell yeah! Growing up, I loved that.
We're gonna have to kick Jack out.
To go there on my birthday.
We're gonna have to kick Jack out and have him reboot. Maybe his dial-up internet ran out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Well, I used to tell Jimmy on the podcast, Jimmy would have me tell a story, and he's, Kenny, you told that story a few weeks ago. I said, well, let me tell it again. I might have changed the finish. So, I always got to change that finish.
Yeah, man. I think, well, we've gone over the hour. Usually Jack does an hour here, and we're having so much fun. The hour blew by.
Oh, is that what y'all normally do, is just an hour? Hell, I go until the expiration of time, until I get tired of talking, is what I do.
Oh, yeah. Or until my battery dies out here.
Are you on a cell phone? Well, I'm on a PC with it sitting in front of a 70-inch screen is what I'm on.
Nice. No, I just do this. I just do this out here. I live in Florida now. I'm down in Palm Coast, and this is like the little Florida room.
What part of Florida are you in?
I'm in Palm Coast. It's like right between St. Augustine and Daytona Beach, off of the 95. I love it down here, man. And so so I do this in this little. It's like called the Florida room.
I was raised in the Tampa St. Pete area in my early to teenage years, and also I was around Weeki Wachee Springs, Brooksville, where my aunt and grandmother lived. So how far are you from Tampa St. Pete, Clearwater, Weeki Wachee Springs, that area?
Not far. I have a buddy that lives in St. Pete. It's a good 3.5 to 4 hour drive.
One of my birth certificates says I was born in St. Petersburg, and the other one says I was born in Lexington. And I still, to this day, my mother swears it was Lexington, but when my stepfather adopted me, they wanted me to have his name. So my aunt, who was with the county commissioner's office in Florida, apparently had me a birth certificate made up that said I was born in St. Petersburg, Florida. So I got through most of life thinking I was born in St. Petersburg because I was there all the time. I had no reason to doubt it. You know, my whole childhood, I was raised in Florida. And so I guess I was born really in Lexington. But
wait,
Mom says we weren't there long. She says we had to get away from your biological father, and for obvious reasons.
And he was really your biological father was really a Klansman, huh?
Yes. He was not only a Klansman, he was the leader of the KKK in Norfolk, Virginia. Absolutely.
You know, we had a guy
and bragged about it. And I know it. Well, here's a story I've told 1,000 times. In 2007, I never spoke to my father again because he called me and he was upset because he picked up a magazine in Norfolk and was upset that I was in a picture with 2 black girls in the rest of the magazine. And he did not call them black girls. And I said, Dad, we don't call them that here. He said, what do you call them? I said, we call them girls. We call them girls, Dad. He says, well, I just want you to know that you being in that magazine, you brought great shame to the family. I said, oh, really? I said, well, let me fix that for you, Dad. Consider that I'm no longer a part of the family.
Now, do you have his surname? For your last name?
First of all, boss man, I've already blocked you off my show 1,000 fucking times. I don't give a fuck if you watch my show or not. I feed hungry Filipino families. You have the fortune tonight that I don't have to beg anybody for money because I'm not raising money for Filipino families in here. You're a low-life scumbag piece of shit. If I had the ability to block you, I would do so. I don't know if the King of Connecticut has the ability to do it. And I hope the other guy pops in because he does, because you're just a little fuckwad who trolls, and that's all you do. That's all you're good for. If you don't want to watch my show, don't watch it. If you don't want to help me feed Filipinos, don't. But that's why you're blocked, because you're a little racist piece of shit. Fuck you. All right. Go ahead.
You know what's interesting, Kenny? Jack probably sees these. I don't see these comments that you're seeing coming through. My eyes are bad. Every once in a while, they'll be
mainly YouTube comments. There's a couple of Facebook comments, but Boss Man has been blocked off everything, and he's in here trolling like they all do. They beg for me to do other shows so they can get in here and get their racist shit in.
Yeah, we had Larry Matza on the show, who was involved in a
Yeah, I
crazy
said
story.
fuckwad. Yeah, it was
Uh,
nice.
and he his boss when he was in the mob was Greg Scarpa, and they both had, to show how corrupt things were back then in the 70s and 80s. They both had badges for the feds, for the FBI, and they went down and they tortured some Klansmen to get information on where some bodies were buried. So they had some great stories about torturing guys from the Klan, and they were given carte blanche to do it by the feds,
Yeah.
by the FBI.
My biological father, last I heard, because I still speak to a couple of my sisters. God, my mother passed away January of 2018. She was 78 when she passed away. So Dad's probably about 83, 84. And, I still call him Dad. I mean, that's what he was. My stepfather passed away of cancer several years ago. But apparently that racist son of a bitch going to live forever, I guess. I don't know. But
only the good die young, they say.
Only the good die young.
Sometimes the opposite.
It does seem to be that way sometimes. Michael says I got more trolls than the movie. Well, you might. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that a guy and I'm fortunate enough to be known all over the world, at least in some places all over the world. But it's not like I have marquee worldwide fame. I just happen to be known all over the world. But it seems like I have more. Russo says, I thought I had a lot of trollers. But man, when you get rid of people, they lose their fucking mind. But a lot of these guys won't block people because they don't want them to turn into trolls. I don't give a shit. Track me down.
Kenny, are you at the point now where you rather not have any association with Jimsy, or do you still like to tell all the Jimsy stories? Because you know what?
Like I tell just as many good stories as I tell bad. I'm disappointed as to what Jimmy has become. I don't understand being gay. I don't understand being a lesbian. I don't understand transgenders. But it's their right to be that if that's what they want to be. And to criticize them and criticize women's looks. That's another thing that really got me and my son upset. He was criticizing the looks of Dana Brooks and then criticizing the one that was Becky Lynch, because she decided she wanted to have a baby. Well, he criticized that. Well, how dare you do that? You're fucking over your fans. You're in the prime of your career. You could have a baby anytime. So he's criticizing that, and he says Dana Brooks is ugly. So as a rib, and Jimmy and I were not speaking at this time, as a rib, I posted a picture of his wife when she was like 22 or 23, and a picture of me as a woman at 57, 58, maybe something like that. And I said, who would you rather kiss, me or Sin? And I won 68% to 32%. They would rather kiss me. So people got pissed because, well, you're calling her ugly. I said, no, you called her ugly. I just said, which one would you rather kiss? I could have lost 99% to 1. You all said she was ugly, those of you that voted for me. The other 38%, I don't know. But no, I never once said she was ugly and made a point not to do so. You that voted for me said she was ugly. So
don't you think, Kenny, that
how do you become 600 pounds at 500? Didn't you think it was a problem? Well, let me tell you something, Charles, if that is your real name. I don't know what to fucking tell you. All I know is that I was eating about the same fucking things that I was eating when I was 275. I had congestive heart failure when I weighed about 280, 290 pounds. I was out to dinner. No, I was doing a personal appearance with my son and Aaron the Idol Stevens. We were doing a birthday party, and I'm on my way back home, and I had a congestive heart failure. I don't know if I'd call it a heart attack or not, but they had to take me directly to U of L. And I got diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And from that day on, I started gaining about 30 pounds a year for 10 years. So I went from near 300 pounds to near 600 pounds in about a 10-year period. And I don't know if you're trying to be a dick or not. Nobody who's 500 pounds wants to go to 600. They all want to go to 400. And and I would lose 30, 40, 50 pounds sometimes, and I'd gain 30 or 40, 50 back. And nothing I was doing was working. It would always be a short fix. Most of the wrestlers would out eat me fucking 5-1 every time we go. Even when I'm 500 and 600 pounds, the wrestlers would out eat me 2, 3, 4-1. So it wasn't about what I was eating; it was about the way I was processing it, and not necessarily. But when they got me ready for surgery, I had to go on a liquid protein diet, so nothing but protein, milkshakes, and no solid food for 45 days. And they said that was to protect my liver and to clean out my system, to clean my liver. And I lost 44 pounds in that 45 days. So you would think if all you're having is protein shakes for 45 days, you think you might even lose more than that. And then I think, so all I got to do is eat protein shakes the rest of my life. I don't even have to have the surgery. They said, no, you got to have the surgery. So,
we're glad that you.
I don't know if they were being a dick or not, but yeah, we're all aware it's a problem. Everybody who's obese knows that's a problem. And
we're glad that you had the surgery. I'm at like 5%. I'm going to conk out here in the next 5 minutes. So I want to do something.
The trollers are going to be pissed, but we'll be all right.
Yeah, but before we close out,
being as I'm a smart guy and a business guy, you could just hook a charger to your phone.
Yeah, well, this room I'm in right now in this setup, I don't have
electricity. That's a great story.
I don't have, but I want to do something with you to close out, man.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm gonna throw some names at you. Just give me your reaction. We already covered Jim Cornette, but how about Brian Last?
He was the reason I left the show. He was the Star Maker Bolin show, by the way, for those of you who'd like to tune in, including you trollers who can't watch it. God, if he ever told 10% of the truth about himself, it would be amazing. I've never seen one person who will tell more lies about himself and expect people to believe it. I've heard him want to challenge to fight wrestling. Brian Last is not going to whip anybody's fucking ass. I don't know that he could whip Cornette, to be honest with you. And I don't know who Cornette can whip, but Brian Last might be the guy. Put it this way. I would pay $5 or $10 to see Brian Last fight Jimmy Cornette just because I wouldn't know who the fuck would win. Because neither one of them have ever thrown or took a punch in their life. They've talked a lot about it, but they ain't never done it.
Here's another one, Vince Russo.
I avoided him like the plague for so many years, and my son decided, Dad, I think we should meet Vince. I think we should talk to him. I think we should do his podcast. I said, Jimmy, I have a fucking cow. He said, who gives a shit? Jimmy doesn't pick your friends. You pick your friends. And I got a feeling, he says, there's a lot of people Jimmy doesn't like, Dad, that we like. I said, yeah, I got it. So I agreed to do Russo agreed to do my podcast. He thought it was a setup. And we got along so great. Everything was so good. Jimmy was furious, kicked me off his show for several weeks and told the fans, well, Kenny hangs out with bad people. So we had to get rid of Kenny for a while. And he said, I'm telling you right now, Russo's using you. He's using you to get to me. He's gonna fuck you over. I said, and that never happened. And that was back in 2013, I think, when I met Russo for the first time. And we've been dear friends ever since. I chat with him every week. And matter of fact, I'm having him on my show again soon, and I'm sure I'll be doing his again soon. Awesome. But he's always been a dear friend. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, so I get it, and I don't give a shit. If you like me, good. Man. If you don't, I'll be all right. I'll pull through. Go ahead.
One last thing before we close out. Were you able to find out if there was any truth to the sad rumor about Lex Luger?
No, I'm not seeing anything on my phone, and no one in here has said anything about it. I don't. As a matter of fact, I've basically said anybody that wears a cowboy hat's a dumb fuck, and is probably a Republican. So, no, I don't have a black cowboy hat. There is a picture of me that I show on my show now. One of those Photoshop artists made one of me because they knew how much I loved the show Yellowstone. So they made a picture of me in this big ass cowboy hat that's like 9 times too big for my head. And this is a pretty big head. I don't know where you'd buy a hat like that. But no, I don't have any. And I was telling somebody on the show the other day that people say I look and sound like JR. I don't hear it and I don't see it. But
not at all. Not at all.
Well, so you agree then?
Yeah, I agree that.
And
that's
I don't people that have seen or heard people that have seen or heard me for the first time, like over on Rene Dupree's show. you'd be amazed how many people say I look and sound like JR, and I don't see it and I don't hear it. And at least you agree with me.
No, I see no resemblance. And Kenny, it was a pleasure to have you on. I'm sorry that
Thank you for having
lost
me on.
my,
I had a good time. Sorry we went overtime, but no, I had a good time. I'll come back anytime.
yeah, and I apologize that we lost my white meat baby face co-host here, the
Yeah, I'm
Canadian.
still talking, motherfucker, and I'll be talking when this show goes off. So what do you think about that? Bitch.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, you enjoy you all. It's been a pleasure. Kenny Stormaker, Bolin, and I want to sign out with this. We're Silver Sages spreading knowledge to the younger ages, the old school shooters. Have a good night, everybody.
Long live Tojo Yamamoto.